unconditional love.
I love this movie so much. I wanted to introduce you to Teresa Coco. She is the writer of the film. Did I pronounce your name properly? Okay, great. Come. Thank you for being with us. So this was not kind of a linear film where a script was written and then a director was picked and all that stuff happened in casting. So tell us a little bit about how this movie came to be, because it's fascinating. Go for it.
Thanks for coming, guys. So Sarah Gavron and Faye Ward knew that they wanted to...
Sarah's the director and Faye's the producer.
Yeah, they knew they wanted to tell a story about young women from London. And Faye had seen a play that I wrote called Girls. So it was a shortcut. I wrote a play called Girls. I'm from London. So she asked me to be a part of it. And we spent probably around a year, 9 months to a year, meeting. We met, well, not me personally, but the casting directors met 1,300 girls from in and around London. And we worked with around 60 of them. And I had been writing this film separately to that process. And in meeting them, spending time with them, this film that I was writing about sisterhood for my sister, Tracy, felt like it would have an appropriate home with these girls who had slowly become sisters amongst each other and our little sisters as well. So it felt like it was the perfect soil to plant that seed.
Was a lot of it done, when you improvise with the girls in terms of how the dialogue was created and the relationships?
Yeah, I think we were really lucky because we were able to get funding from BFI and Film 4 to sort of just figure it out. So
like workshop it?
Yeah, because we spent so much time together. I think when me and Claire went to actually script the story, we knew the girls really well, so we knew their language. I also work with young people in London, and I'm from Hackney, which is where the film is set, so a lot of it was very natural to us. Bookie, the lead, lives literally down the road from me, so we were lucky.
We need to talk about her.
We do.
Yeah. So had she acted before? So Bookie Buckray?
Buckray, yeah.
Yeah. So had she acted before?
No, none of the young people have acted
Okay.
before. None of them had even done a drama GCSE. They were 13.
Put your mic closer.
Sorry, they were 13 and 14 when we met them and didn't know anything about this world.
So she lived down the block from you. Did you know her? Did you seen her before? Amazing. Amazing casting. I mean, mind-blowingly good.
Yeah.
And so, Bucky, did you know her, or how did you find her?
We met her at Clapton Girls' School, the school that she goes to. She was this slightly stronger and stoic character who was a year older than the initial casting remit, but she reminded me of my sister, Tracy, and I was just like, it has to be her. There was something about her sort of aloofness, but then she would crack into this smile and this laughter that consumed the room, and then when she took it away, it was like the clouds had covered the sun, and you wanted it and you needed it, and that for me felt like who this film was for and who this film should be about. So when she was a little bit older, I just went back and the good thing about being the writer is you can make it what you want. So I just changed the character's age, and I just kept changing it until it had to be Bookie, and then I kind of just said, oh, it will be you, don't worry, I'm working on it. And then you can't hurt a child, so they had to. But yeah, she was magic from the day we met her, so we were really lucky. And when they gave her the role, she just said, okay, yeah, cool, thanks. But I found out later that she went to Finsbury Park, which is like a big park in London, and she screamed, but she didn't show us any of that. So.
And you talked about writing this for your sister. Can you elaborate a little further on that?
Yeah, initially I was working with some producers at Film 4 to write. I've got 5 sisters, and this is for Tracy, so people always ask, are the other sisters jealous? But they know, Tracy's my favourite. So it was always meant to be a love letter to her to say, thank you for all your strength and for being strong enough to allow me to be soft, to give me that childhood, that innocence that you see Bookie give for Emmanuel. And so many black and brown girls are adultised by communities, by families, by expectations, that often those moments of childhood and innocence are stolen. And it's to say to them that we see that sacrifice you make, but we also see that your childhood and your innocence is valid and it's worthy, and let's try and create space for black and brown girls to be children.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's such a picture of resilience also. So before we throw it to the audience, Corey, who works with me, wanted me to ask a question that I wanted to ask too, but why didn't she talk to Emmanuel at the end?
I think it's a sacrifice that she had to make. She had to give up her idea of what things should be to what it could be. And I think in letting go of him, she gave herself what she deserved, which is a childhood, and she gave him the hope of something maybe a little bit better than what she could provide.
Beautiful. Does anyone have any questions in the audience? We have one right here. First. We have a mic coming to you. You can just stand up and talk also.
This is just a very simple question. I know there are a lot of more complicated themes I'm curious about. But what was the process of choosing Emmanuel? I feel like he brought such a life to the whole movie. Pretty much everything he said, the audience was laughing.
Yeah. Did everybody hear that? Did everybody hear that about how he cast Emmanuel? Okay.
He sort of chose himself. No, he just showed up at the audition and said that he's here for the role. And so we was like, okay. But in his first audition, it was a chemistry test because we had all spent almost a year together by the time, probably more than a year together by the time Emmanuel came on board. So it was important for him to feel the love, because there was genuine love in all the rooms and all the spaces that we had occupied, and we put him and Bucky together and just had them. I think the question we asked him was, if your sister's sad, if Bucky's your sister and she's sad, what would you do to cheer her up? And he did the whole visualization exercise that you see that made it to the script. That was his instinct. So moments like that was really good for me, because I always had my laptop on me, so I'd be like, I'll take that and put it in the script.
So when you said you were together for a year, was it all the girls that you were working with for a long time?
Yeah, it started off, like I said, 1,300, then probably 60, then 30, then around 10, and then the 7 you see now.
Okay. And how did you, what was 7? Like, why was it 7? And the diversity of the girls, is that typical of the neighborhood? And talk a little bit about, like, how you picked that cohort of 7.
It just was the girls. It was the girls that sort of committed to come in it was because it was so. It took quite a while for us to get it together and figure out what we wanted to do. So sometimes there was a month between the second and the third workshop, and it was the girls who would come consistently. And in doing so, they found each other, they formed friendships, they'd have to share cabs back home, and they're all from around East London as well, so they made friends. They just sort of found themselves, and it's very typical of London, like particularly the part of London that you see. There's a lot of depictions of London doesn't show Dalston Market, which is literally where I grew up, and this is what London does look like.
Right. And are they still friends?
They are.
That's awesome. Any other questions? Oh, did you have one?
Yeah, I'm just curious if you could say a little bit about the foster care system. I mean, here the foster care system is it's unusual to get both the kids to be happy. Yeah. Like, it looked like such a happy outcome, and that's not often the case. So I'm interested in hearing how you scripted that and whether that is kind of realistic.
I'm a particular advocate for the foster care system and what it could be. I think the reason why people ask about when the film ended and why it ended there, because it's the hope of what it could be, and often when you see young people and systems fail, it isn't because of the people who enter it, it isn't because they had bad intentions, it's often the things that happen after that moment. So we see this moment that looks like, oh, this is really hopeful and optimistic, but we know that actually that doesn't necessarily mean that in 18 months' time they're both going to be happy and productive and pro-social and well-adjusted. And then we have to ask ourselves as a society, what do we do that stops the hope manifesting and coming to fruition?
I think the production also with you and Claire, your co-writer, and Sarah and Faye, really is a really interesting dynamic, because Sarah wanted you to be so much a part of this, and so talk a little bit about kind of how you all work together in terms of writing and directing and producing and all that.
It was really collaborative from the beginning. That was the appeal. That was why I felt like I could share something so close to my heart with this group of women. We had 75% female crew, which is really unheard of. So when people say they can't do it, it can be done, because that's in a very tiny island called the UK. If we managed to get female gaffers in, I'm sure other people can as well. And in doing that, we wanted to make sure that people felt that the young women felt that they could see people that looked like them behind the cameras. But for me, personally, having this being my first film, having not grown up around anything like this, it was I felt inspired, and I felt like I could see things I could aspire to. So the social work scene, when the social worker comes in, I was really lucky that I was supported to direct that scene, because I had thoughts and ideas, and Sarah would say, come into the room. The first AD would allow me into the room, and it was very much, everyone's roles were very fluid. So Anu Henriquez, who's now the associate director / co-director, she started off as the associate producer. And I think I don't know if it's a woman thing, but because there wasn't any egos, and there wasn't hierarchy or the patriarchal thing that I think holds the film industry back, it meant that people stepped aside when they felt somebody else could offer something more enriching to the moment.
That's great. It should be a model for other collaborations. And your film opens in the UK in April, okay? And still looking for a distributor here, right?
Hopefully, yeah.
So if anyone knows any distributors. So we have one here and then one back there. Yeah? Oh. They still need US distribution. This is the New York premiere. And so if anyone knows distributors, get in touch. Right back there?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
If you want 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds to watch this film, did you think about a different structure, such as a series of 15-minute films that would build on each other? Why did you go with the feature-length film?
So I saw Black Panther like everybody else did, and I cried, not because Killmonger died, spoiler alert, but because I realised in all my years being committed to Marvel, it was the first time that Marvel loved me back. So I think these girls and girls who look like this deserve to go and see themselves in massive, massive screens being loved back.
We got one
We
right
have
there.
a question here. Right over here.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for showing black and brown girls, British girls on screen. I'm very emotional right now.
Thank you.
I just had this revelation when the end credits rolled that British cinema has only told certain types of stories. So all of you think that like everyone in England is from Downton Abbey or the royal family, and there's so many other stories to be told. And I wanted to know, what other stories do you want to tell? What other films are you going to make?
I'm really lucky I'm working with BBC Films. I'm hoping to direct next and do more with communities that look like mine, with people that look like mine. And I always wonder, actually, when we do watch British TV with, like, when there are aliens or robots, or I always wonder, like, what are black people doing? So I don't know, maybe aliens in an estate in Hackney.
We got one right over here.
Oh, thanks. That was a really beautiful film. Thank you so
you.
much. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how you actually built this story and what the writing process was like, and if it changed at all after you chose the girls and met the characters, and where you found inspiration for the story, essentially.
So I had this like a beat sheet effectively for the film, and when I shared it with Claire and Sarah, and they responded so well to it, what we then did was we put each beat up on like massive A3 sheets of paper around a workshop room, and we had the girls in with iPads and iPods and coloured paper, and we spoke to them about each idea for the scene, and they fed into it. They drew pictures, they did diary entries, they gave anecdotes. And for example, Afi, who plays Yawa, she is the next Beyonce. She'll tell you within 5 minutes of meeting her. And so, you know, there were moments where she wanted to show that energy, and it was really about having them pour a lot of who they were and their magic into it. So it was, I think, from the beats to the actual scripting, I like to think it was really collaborative. Like I say, it was a love story to my sister, but I think what it became, I hope, was a love story to my sister, to their sisters, to their sisters' sisters. And I say 100 women made this film, so I hope 100,000 women feel loved by it.
You are good. You're a great writer. I think we're going to have to call it a night and a festival. But thank you for being our closing film. We are honored. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you all next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.